Alright, so Arcane Season 2 just finished airing, and I gotta say, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. It's so much better than Season 1 out. Like, that was surprising to me. I didn't think they were gonna top it off like that. Generally, shows just don't do that. It's kind of surprising how they're able to kind of one-up their game with Season 2, and they did everything in terms of the production, the writing, the music. That's a huge part. Everything about the show is just amazing. Even the new characters they introduced, all of it's just good. Maybe there are a few faults here and there. For example, like the plot holes, some unfulfilled storylines that wasn't really fully fledged or fully explained. And without even going into spoiler territory, I guess like maybe there was a few issues with the ending, but honestly, despite all that, I genuinely think that Arcane Season 2 or just Arcane in general was just a really good show. As an Arcane fan and someone who hasn't really delved into much of the League of Legends lore, then you're gonna see that you're just gonna have a really good time with the show. From someone who has played League of Legends and who understands a bit of the lore, some people might not actually like the ending or how they dealt with the lore of Arcane. And I just want to really just talk about that and I don't really want to go into too much spoiler territory, but essentially, and if I were to summarize what Riot Games has done in terms of the lore, is that they have completely destroyed half of the existing lore in League of Legends by introducing the entirety of Arcane and saying that Arcane is supposed to be the main headcanon. And why this is so prevalent is because a lot of the characters in League of Legends already have a well-sustaining and good foundational lore that they already have. For example, Victor is, and this is going to be really surprising, but you're going to have to make this comparison without me actually saying Victor, like who Victor is in the Season 2 Arcane, because it's going to be a bit of a spoiler, but I can say that in the League of Legends actual game core lore, he is this mechanized cyborg robotic scientist who is heralding this new front of evolutionary technology and just kind of like improving upon humanity by creating robots and creating all different types of automation and stuff like that. And then try to compare that kind of understanding of what you have with Victor in the League of Legends lore with the Victor that you know from the Arcane series, and you're gonna see there's a really clear difference. Now keep that in mind, knowing that the lore in League of Legends is now going to be overwritten with existing lore. Not overwritten, but more like trying to keep up to date with the lore that's presented in Arcane, now that we know that Arcane is now canon. So you can see there's a bit of a controversy in that aspect, that some of the characters' lore is going to be rewritten in that regard. There's another issue when you're trying to rewrite a character's background. A lot of the characters that you play in the game, a lot of those characters are interconnected with one another. For example, and this is not really going to spoiler territory, but so Blitzcrank is a creation from Victor, and this is quite important because the whole idea of this one character's existence and how they are robotic and mechanized very strictly based on the fact that Victor is also this cyborg robotic scientist. There's a bit of a gap. I can't really think of any other example, but I think you get my picture, right? Arcane, what it has done is basically overwritten a lot of the League of Legends lore. Again, I wouldn't mind it if they made it in a very tasteful way, but now that we're seeing kind of, they're rewriting it as in they're completely destroying any form of lore that they had with these characters that were originally really good. I really like Victor in the Arcane series, but I also really like Victor in the League of Legends core universe. So it's really weird to see literally a character, his entire background just completely diminished because of Arcane. Clearly, it's a very touchy subject when you say the show's canon and then you completely overwrite an existing character's lore and how they are going to be designed. The way that they were originally designed just felt so much better in my opinion. Like, Victor's design, I feel like, to me, I really love his cyborg aesthetic, but now he's gonna be like this freaking, it just feels so weird. And I think someone pointed this out in like a Reddit post where it would have been nice if Arcane was just a spin-off series and it wasn't really connected with or like directly influenced in the actual lore of the, you know, the League of Legends universe. But now that it is, it's just gonna complicate a lot of things, and it's kind of confusing what Riot Games really want in this aspect. Honestly, as someone who plays League of Legends and who also watches Arcane, there's gonna be a little disconnect between me and how they're gonna be handling the lore from here on out. I guess a lot of the things that are going to affect the lore is honestly left up to interpretation, because the way that Arcane ended, I guess this is gonna be a bit spoiler, but the way that they ended was, it's a bit open-ended. A lot of the story is just kind of open to interpretation as to what happened to these characters. Some characters do die, some characters don't die, but it's kind of confusing as to actually what happened to these characters. The problem with this approach is that you now create this gap where you are now expected to kind of fill in over the years. What happens to Jinx? What happens to Vi and Caitlyn? What happens to Jace and Victor? See, these are some of the questions that you need to kind of fulfill when ending the show. But because you left the show open-ended, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, which Riot Games thinks that it's a way of kind of melding. It's more like a question of, from Riot's perspective, right? How do you create an ending where you can't disappoint a lot of people and you can please a lot of people at the same time? And I feel like going with the open ending approach made it so that there's a lot of room for interpretation. That's one thing. But now, because you're leaving a lot of room for confusion as well. And so a lot of people in this current state are just kind of confused as to where all of these characters are in their current state and how they're reflected in League of Legends. Again, you probably wouldn't care as much if you didn't play League of Legends, but you're gonna really care a lot if you play a lot of these characters, especially for me, because I play a lot of Victor, so I know exactly, I know how this is gonna affect me. I know how this is gonna be like such an impactful way of how they're gonna tell the story for League of Legends, and especially how hex gates are also an important part of League of Legends. Now they're just gonna be like, oh, hex gates are bad, so we're gonna reflect that in the game. It's this whole ordeal of things, and it's just, yeah. Again, I really like Arcane. Arcane as a show is really good, but with the ending, as in a League of Legends fan, I feel like there's just a lot of confusion from my side and then from a lot of other people's side as well. A lot of speculation, a lot of questions being asked. Knowing Riot, they're probably going to respond to this, a lot of this feedback, a lot of these questions that's being asked. I hope that how they answer these questions, it's going to not piss anyone out, because oh god, there's gonna be a fucking dumpster fire if they handle this whole situation completely wrong. But yeah, that's pretty much it.